Hi, and welcome to Introduction to 3D Modeling. In these next tutorials, we're going to go into the basics but essential techniques on how to model in Autodesk Maya, one of many 3D applications out there. These techniques apply to every other modeling software out there. We are also going to create based on a concept of Oliver Medak, a miner's lodge. By the end of this tutorial, you're going to have a broad understanding of how to use the tools at your disposal to create 3D models that can be used in games. Let's jump right into it. So to get started, the first thing you want to do is to download Maya. To download Maya, we have to go into the Autodesk website, which is autodesk.com. Once you get into autodesk.com, you won't see student download in the actual website. The way you get it is you gotta go into products, start a trial, unlock student access. Here is gonna ask you all your credentials for your school, and then it will let you download whatever version of Maya you can get for the student. Right now probably is the 2020. I'm using 2019. You could also download the 2019. It doesn't matter. Maya is mostly the same. It's just it adds new features to program so that it makes your life easier. But besides that, it's the same program. So once you download Maya and you're set up with Maya, another software that we're gonna be using is Substance. Substance, a 3D painting tool or a material creation tool. So we're gonna be using Substance Painter, which is basically the easiest one to use. They're all easy once you get the grip of it. This one you paint straight on the model. Designer basically lets you create materials based on nodes. So everything is procedural depending on the nodes that you use. Alchemist is a new program that they just launched to create tileables. So you can actually create a whole texture from scratch. If you want to create like a ground texture, you can do that straight from Alchemist. And all of these, you can export one texture and put it in the other program. So you're not stuck with one single program. You can jump from one to another. But to keep it simple, we are just going to attack Painter. Substance source is basically all the materials that people have created and that Substance itself have created for us so that you can just download and basically drag and drop into your model, and you're gonna have your model already textured. It'll look generic because you need to give it more uniqueness, but it's there. You can actually get a free version of this software. So you're entitled for a free personal license, which will give you access to all three software and you can play around with them. The other program we are going to be using is Unreal. Unreal is the 3D engine that is going to run all your assets for the game. So Unreal is free and you can download it and start playing right off the bat with it. You can just import your models and see them real time and basically move around in 3D space. Unreal has gotten a lot of iterations since it came out. The first version that came out was Unreal Engine 4. Then we're up to Unreal Engine 4.26. So this is the 26th iteration of the engine. You can basically do games, architecture, automotive transportation, so that if you want to show off cars or do commercials for cars, you could do that. Broadcast live events, film and television, training simulators, and a lot of more other uses that you can create with the software. There's also, if you get Unreal, you get what is known as Quixel. Quixel is a library of different materials that were scanned from real world objects. When you subscribe to Unreal, all their software is free. You can get, once you log in with your Unreal account, you get access to all these materials. And they're like thousands of materials. You can get 3D assets, you can get textures, you can get models. Anything that you can think of, they'll probably have it. And it's all free if you download Unreal and start using it. So this is the library of all the assets. But if you go into Quixel.com, you get 3 programs basically with them: Mixer, Bridge, and Megascan. Megascan is where all the materials are stored. Mixer is basically another substance painter, kinda. And Bridge is basically the bridge between when you create your Mixer straight into Bridge, and then Bridge will put it into any engine or any program that you want. Also, another website that most artists use as well is textures.com, which is simple. The only problem with these is that there's a few selections of textures, but you can get most of them. If you get them low resolutions, you can basically download the texture and have any type of texture that you could use as well. These, for the most part, always bring the diffuse map, the normal map, roughness map, and height map. For you guys that don't know, what are these maps for? Albedo or diffuse is basically your color map. Then we have the normal map, which is like the bumpness of the material. So all these bumps that you see on the material is basically caused by the normal. Roughness is how shiny or metallic a material could be. This is what they call PBR, physical based rendering. Then the height map is another type of normal map, but it actually distorts the geometry. In order for you to use a height map, you apply it to your mesh, and then with a series of different nodes, you can make your detail go off your mesh or into your mesh. It uses what is called tessellation, which basically adds more geometry, fake geometry, to your mesh so that you can have more detail on it. In all cases, roughness maps and height maps are in grayscale, so black and white. Another cool website that you use to create textures is gametextures.com. They also have a broad selection of materials that you could use for any type of project. They're game ready already, so you can just import them. The only problem is that these are not free. They have freebies that you can download for free if you like any of them. And then for our class, we are gonna be creating this Miner's Lodge. It was created by Oliver Medak. He's a concept artist. He does a lot of concept art. If you take a look at his work, most of it is medieval, but really cool. If you come to ArtStation, ArtStation has a lot of concept artists. Here's where every single artist around the world just post their work or what they have worked on. But in this case, we're gonna be working with that concept art. So we're going to be jumping into Photoshop so that I can show you the concept art and how we're gonna break it down into parts so that we can model in Maya. So here we have our concept art. So if we take a look at the whole concept art, we can see a lot of parts to this concept art. The easiest way that you could tackle anything is to break it down into simple shapes. Like, let me create another layer. Let me change the color on my pen. So, by the way, I'm using a display tablet. So you're gonna see that I'm able to do nice swivels. You don't need a tablet, but for the most part is easier when it comes to drawing, sculpting, painting. It comes easier to do it on a tablet that went with the mouse. But it's not necessary. I've modeled. To model, I actually don't use the tablet at all. I use my mouse and keyboard. But when it comes to painting and like stuff that need accuracy, I use my pen. But it's not necessary. I did half of my career with just the mouse and keyboard. But going back to what I was saying, we break stuff into basic shapes. So a basic shape of this is basically a box. So you can see that this is just straight box, a cube, and we attack models based on shapes, broken down easier so that you can obtain the shape that you need. Also, one mistake that most people do is that they try to model everything out of one piece of geometry. I did it at the beginning of my career. It's a headache because you can't get most of the stuff done just with one piece of geometry. You basically create multiples and put them together. At the end, you combine them and it's one mesh, but it's composed of different assets. This bell right here. This bell is a perfect example of one asset that could be composed of many. Let's say I create the bell. But the bell right now, I could create this of one piece of geometry. Or even this of one piece of geometry. Then the other part, this I'll create with another piece of geometry. And then the third one I'll create with the hook, I'll create with the other piece of geometry. And when I combine them, it'll look like a full bell. If I were to model this whole thing out of one piece of geometry, it will be a nightmare, just because these are all flat and going the same direction, but then you have a hole in the middle. So it's easier if you just create, let's say, like a donut on the top, shape it to what you want and place it on the top of the bell. We're gonna create modular pieces that you can put together so that you can create more than this specific building. So we're gonna have modular walls. Modular walls is basically walls that you can put together and you can create different models out of it. So these models are not just gonna be for this specific use. With this, you can basically create a town if you wanted to, because you have different parts to it. So the way we're gonna break it up is, currently we have this mesh and we can notice that there's a wall. So we have a wall here, which is square, right? Don't worry about the door, because what we're gonna do is we're gonna create a flat wall with nothing on it, just the pattern of the bricks. And then we're gonna create the door separate that we can overlay on top of the wall. So it's gonna look like there is actual door, a hole cut into the building. Since this building is not gonna go, we're not gonna go into it, we don't have to create an interior. So it's fine if you just can create a plane. That's how, when you see a concept art, you got to think of, what am I going to do with this concept art? What are the models intended to do? If it's going to have an interior, if it's going to be hollow, if it's just a prop, if it's just a background building. So you got to think of all these things before you start modeling so that you don't overwork. Since we're not going to create an interior, and this is just for show, like a prop, we can create a flat plane for the wall. So we have two flat planes, different sizes, same pattern. And in the UV map, this is more advanced, but you can create this same wall and put a line in here in your model, thinking further. Then we're gonna go up and we see the top part has another wall. It's the same thing, just a different type of texture. break it in the middle because of the UVs. Same thing here. But this, since we have a front view of the building, we see that this wall is just the same thing. So we can make a square, but then on this type part, we can make another piece looking like that. So then we have the front. So we have basically 1, 2, 3, 4 squares and 1 half a circle. And the same thing in the other side. So this is how you break down a concept art so that you can do less work and create more variations of the same mesh. Then the other mesh that we're gonna be attacking are these logs. These logs, pretty simple. It's just straight cylinder. We duplicate the cylinders a couple of times so that we can create this part right here. And that's that for the middle part. Then another piece that we will need for this concept are the supports of the bottom building, which are these right here. So we're gonna create those separate, and we only have to create one of them, because with one of them we just duplicate them all around and we have all the supports that we're gonna be needing. And this, we do it with some techniques based of cube. You start with a cube and then you start using extrusions. It's a tool in Maya so that you can extrude more geometry and more faces from a cube so that you can create whatever object you need to create by modifying the vertices and the faces. So then after we create all these faces, we have a full building. All we need is the ceiling. So the ceiling, simple. We'll create half of the ceiling so that we can basically mirror it across, but we're gonna have at the end a shape, and all this we can start it with a plane or we could start it with a cylinder. Cylinder, I think, will work fine. We just need to delete the caps and mold it to this form. And then all these, the rest of these, basically all the windows and doors, these are props that are gonna be added later. So we don't have to model it at the beginning. We just create different variations of these walls and ceilings and logs, and we can create different variations of textures so that we can create more. Like, you with one set of meshes, you can create many variations of the same thing, just adding different textures to them. So think about of how different ways and different shapes that you can extract from all these assets to make your life easier. Once we jump into Maya, I'm gonna show you some techniques and how to create models and how to start them so that you can have clean geometry and at the same time don't do a lot of work, so that you don't overcomplicate yourself with a complex model, but make it as simple as possible to create.